The forest was never meant to be this quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that wraps around your ears and presses in, making your heart beat louder than your thoughts. The kind that tells you something is wrong. I felt it before I heard it. My name is Daniel, and the night I was bitten by a werewolf started like any other bad decision I pretended was harmless. Just 10 minutes, I told myself as I stepped off the dirt road and into the trees. 10 minutes to cut through the forest and get home faster. I'd done it before. Everyone had. The moon was full, bright enough to turn the leaves silver and cast long shadows that twisted like claws across the ground. That should have been my first warning. The air was cold, unnaturally cold for the season. My breath fogged in front of me as I pushed deeper between the trees, branches scraping against my jacket like fingernails. Somewhere far away, an owl cried out. Then, silence again. No insects. No wind. I slowed my steps. That was when I smelled it. Metallic. Sharp. Like rust and wet fur. My stomach tightened. I told myself it was just my imagination, that fear plays tricks on the mind when you're alone in the dark. I laughed nervously, one short breath that vanished too quickly. Then I heard the growl. Low. Deep. Close. I froze. It wasn't the sound of a dog. It wasn't the sound of any animal I knew. This growl vibrated through the ground, through my bones, like the forest itself was warning me to run. Slowly, I turned. Yellow eyes stared back at me from between the trees. They weren't reflective like an animal's. They glowed, burning, intelligent, furious. The creature stepped forward, and moonlight revealed its shape. Taller than any man. Shoulders broad and hunched. Muscles shifting beneath coarse, dark fur. Claws curved like sickles dug into the dirt with every step. A werewolf. My mind rejected the word even as my eyes confirmed it. Werewolves weren't real. They were stories. Myths. Campfire nonsense meant to scare kids. This thing bared its teeth. They were stained red. I ran. Branches whipped my face as I sprinted blindly through the trees, lungs burning, heart slamming against my ribs. I could hear it behind me, heavy, powerful strides that barely disturbed the ground. It wasn't chasing to catch me quickly. It was chasing to enjoy it. I tripped over a root and crashed hard onto my shoulder, pain exploding through my arm. I screamed as I tried to crawl backward, dirt filling my mouth, eyes wide with terror. The werewolf emerged from the shadows. Up close, it was worse. Its breath came out in hot, wet bursts. Its eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second, I saw something else in them, something human. Regret. Or hunger. Or both. I tried to speak. To beg. To pray. It lunged. Pain ripped through my shoulder as its jaws closed around me. I felt teeth sink into flesh, crushing bone, tearing muscle. My scream tore itself out of my throat as blood soaked my shirt, hot and endless. The world spun. The forest tilted. Then the creature pulled back. It stared at me again, chest heaving. Blood dripped from its fangs onto the leaves between us. For a moment, it looked afraid. As if it had made a mistake. Then it turned and vanished into the darkness. I lay there, shaking, bleeding, sobbing into the dirt. My shoulder burned like it was on fire. My veins pulsed with heat, spreading from the wound, crawling through my body like liquid lightning. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The moonlight seemed too bright. The forest too sharp. I could hear things, heartbeats far away, the scuttle of insects returning, whispers of movement miles beyond where I lay. I dragged myself up against a tree, clutching my wound. The skin around the bite was already changing. Dark veins spread outward like cracks in glass. The flesh pulsed. Twitched. I felt stronger. And that terrified me more than the pain. As I stared at my blood-soaked hands, one thought echoed louder than the rest. I survived the bite. But I knew, deep down, with a certainty colder than fear, I wasn't human anymore. I didn't make it home. I don't remember how long I stumbled through the forest after the bite, only flashes. Moonlight breaking through the trees. My breath coming in sharp, animal bursts. The wound on my shoulder no longer bleeding, no longer hurting the way it should. Instead, it throbbed with heat, like something alive was coiled inside me, waking up. By the time I reached the edge of town, the world felt different. Every sound was louder. A distant dog barking felt like it was right beside my ear. I could smell wet soil, rusted metal, fear, real fear, coming from houses I couldn't even see yet. It made my head spin. I collapsed behind an abandoned storage shed at the edge of the road, gasping for air. My reflection stared back at me from a cracked window. I didn't recognize myself. My eyes glowed faintly yellow, flickering like dying embers. Veins dark as ink crawled along my neck, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. When I pressed my hand against the glass, my fingers left deep smears, too deep. "What did you do to me?" I whispered, though I didn't know who I was talking to anymore. The moon rose higher. The pain returned without warning. It hit me like a hammer to the spine. I screamed as my back arched violently, bones grinding beneath my skin. My muscles clenched and expanded, tearing fibers apart and rebuilding them in seconds. I could feel it, every change, every shift, like my body was being rewritten line by line. My hands twisted. Fingers stretched, nails cracking and reforming into thick, black claws. I tried to pull them back, tried to stop it, but my body no longer listened to me. Fur burst through my skin in violent patches, dark and coarse, spreading out my arms and across my chest. I fell to my knees, retching. My jaw burned. Teeth pushed forward, sharpening, crowding my mouth until I tasted blood. My face felt like it was splitting open, bones sliding and locking into something new. My ears rang as my skull reshaped itself, and with every crack, the world became clearer, too clear. I could hear the hum of power lines. The flutter of moth wings. The heartbeat of a stray cat hiding beneath a car 2 streets away. "No, no, no," I choked, clutching my head. The transformation didn't stop. My legs snapped backward with a sickening crunch, forcing me onto all fours. The pain was unbearable, then suddenly, it wasn't. Strength surged through me, raw and intoxicating. My lungs expanded, pulling in the night air like I'd been drowning my entire life and only now learned how to breathe. I roared. The sound that tore from my throat wasn't human. It echoed off the buildings, deep and powerful, filled with fury and hunger. I clamped a clawed hand over my mouth too late. Lights flicked on in nearby houses. Fear washed over me, not just my own, but theirs. I could feel it, taste it, like electricity on my tongue. It made something inside me stir. Smile. I staggered toward the shed's shadow, struggling to hold onto my thoughts as instinct screamed over them. Run. Hide. Hunt. My reflection stared back again from the glass, but now it was a monster. Tall. Hunched. Fur-covered. Glowing eyes burning gold. A werewolf stared at me with my memories behind its gaze. For a moment, I thought I could control it. Then the hunger hit. It wasn't just hunger for food. It was a need, a violent pull toward movement, warmth, life. My claws dug into the dirt as I fought it, muscles trembling with the effort to stay still. I heard footsteps. A man walking his dog at the end of the road, unaware. My head snapped toward the sound before I could stop it. The dog whimpered. That was the last thread. I bolted. The world blurred as I ran faster than any human ever could. Fences shattered beneath my weight. Pavement cracked. The night air tore past me as I fled toward the forest again, driven by terror and instinct in equal measure. I don't remember what happened after that. Only fragments. Blood on my claws that wasn't mine. A scream cut short. The taste of iron heavy on my tongue. When I woke, the moon was setting. I lay naked and broken in the dirt, human once more, surrounded by silence. My body ached in ways I didn't have words for. My shoulder bore a scar where the bite had been, jagged and black. I stared at my trembling hands. I remembered everything. And the worst part? Somewhere deep inside me, I missed the power. I woke up in my bathroom. Not gently, violently. My body slammed against the tiled floor as if I'd been dropped there, lungs sucking in air like I'd been buried alive. Every muscle screamed. My head throbbed with memories that refused to stay quiet. Blood. Running. Screams. I rolled onto my side and retched into the toilet, bile burning my throat. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the porcelain just to stay upright. When the heaving finally stopped, I leaned back against the tub, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it had all been a nightmare. But nightmares don't leave scars. I slowly pushed myself to my feet and faced the mirror above the sink. At first, I saw only myself, pale, exhausted, eyes rimmed red with sleepless terror. My shoulder was wrapped in a towel soaked through with dried blood. Dark bruises covered my chest and arms, shaped like hands and claws. Then the mirror changed. The glass cracked with a sharp snap, a thin fracture splitting my reflection straight down the center. I jumped back, heart racing, but the crack stopped halfway, like it had decided where to end. On the left side, I was human. On the right, something else stared back. The skin there was darker, stretched tight over sharper bone. One eye glowed faintly yellow, unblinking. A fawn pressed against my lower lip, just visible beneath the surface. I raised my hand, and the reflection followed, but slower, wrong, like it didn't belong to me. "No," I whispered. The reflection smiled. Not with my mouth, with its teeth. I stumbled backward, crashing into the door. My breath came fast and shallow. The room smelled strange, too sharp, too alive. I could hear the hum of the pipes in the walls, the ticking of the clock in the next room, the neighbor's footsteps upstairs. I pressed my palms against my ears. "Stop," I begged. "Please, just stop." The mirror rippled. The crack spread, branching like lightning across the glass. The werewolf reflection leaned closer, eyes burning brighter. I could feel it then, its presence, not outside me, but inside. It wasn't a voice. It was a pressure. A hunger. A memory of speed and strength and freedom that made my heart race. My hands curled into fists, nails digging painfully into my palms. For a terrifying second, I wanted the reflection to step out. To take over. To make the noise in my head go quiet. I slammed my fist into the mirror. Glass exploded outward, shards scattering across the sink and floor. Blood streamed from my knuckles, but I barely felt it. I stared at the broken pieces, each fragment reflecting a different version of me, human, monster, something in between. I sank to my knees. "I didn't ask for this," I whispered. The bathroom door creaked open. I froze. "Daniel," my sister's voice called softly from the hallway. "Are you home?" Panic surged through me. I grabbed a towel, wrapping it around my bleeding hand, trying to slow my breathing. The smell of fear, hers, hit me like a punch. It made my teeth ache. "Don't come in," I shouted, louder than I meant to. She stopped. "What happened?" I couldn't answer. I didn't trust my voice. My eyes flicked to the mirror shards again, half expecting them to move. "Daniel," she said, closer now. "You're scaring me." So was I. I opened the door just enough to look at her. Her eyes widened at the sight of me, bloodied, shaking, eyes too bright. "What did you do?" she asked. I wanted to tell her everything. About the forest. The bite. The monster living behind my eyes. But the words tangled in my throat, heavy and dangerous. "I had an accident," I said. It was a lie. She knew it. I knew it. She reached out, then hesitated, like she wasn't sure who, or what, she was touching. The hesitation hurt more than the broken glass. "I need help," I said finally. I think I'm sick." She nodded slowly, fear and concern warring on her face. Okay. We'll get you help. As she turned away to grab her phone, my reflection flickered in a shard near the sink. The glowing eye winked. That was when I understood the truth, cold and unmovable. The werewolf wasn't something I turned into. It was something that had already become a part of me. And it was waiting. Sleep abandoned me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a yellow light burning behind my eyelids, watching, waiting. When I finally gave up and sat on the edge of my bed, dawn was bleeding weakly through the curtains, turning the room gray and lifeless. That was when I felt it. A pull. Subtle, insistent. Like a thread tied around my soul and tugged from somewhere deep in the dark. I staggered to the mirror across the room. My reflection stared back, hollow-eyed and pale. For a heartbeat, I almost believed the nightmare was fading. Then my right eye began to burn. I cried out, clutching my face as heat surged through the socket, spreading down my cheek and into my jaw. When the pain eased, I looked again. One eye was still mine, bloodshot, exhausted, human. The other glowed. Not bright, not blazing, just enough to notice. A predatory yellow that pulsed faintly, like a living ember beneath the surface. Veins spiderwebbed around it, dark and pronounced. No, I whispered. This isn't happening. The glowing eye narrowed. Not physically, but intentionally. I felt its focus shift, locking onto details I hadn't even been aware of before. The ticking clock across the room sounded deafening. The scent of dust, sweat, and fear filled my nose. My heart began to race, and with it came the pull again. Hunger. I backed away from the mirror, heart pounding. You're not real, I said to the reflection. You're just a symptom. A hallucination. The glow brightened in response. Memories that weren't mine surfaced, running through forests under moonlight, tearing through flesh, the thrill of pursuit. My stomach twisted. I sank into the chair, gripping the armrests as my fingers threatened to change, nails pressing painfully against skin. A knock came at the door. I jumped so hard the chair scraped against the floor. Daniel, my sister called. You okay? I forced a breath. The glow dimmed slightly, like a predator retreating into shadow. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. She hesitated. You look different. I turned away so she wouldn't see my eye. Didn't sleep. She lingered, then nodded. I made tea. It might help. The door closed softly behind her. I exhaled shakily and returned to the mirror. The glowing eye was watching me again. This time, it blinked, slow, deliberate. I slammed my palm against the glass. Get out of my head. Pain flared behind my eyes, sharp and immediate. Images flooded my vision, people walking outside, heartbeats glowing like targets, veins pumping life beneath fragile skin. I could see them even with the curtains closed, sensed them moving through the house, through the neighborhood. The curse was sharpening me. I wrapped a scarf around my face and slipped on sunglasses, hands trembling as I checked my reflection once more. The monster stared back, half hidden but far from gone. I needed answers. Outside, the world felt wrong. Too loud. Too bright. Every sound scraped against my nerves. A passing car made me flinch. The scent of gasoline mixed with sweat and fear was overwhelming. I passed a man on the sidewalk. Our eyes met. My glowing eye flared beneath the lenses. He froze. For just a second, just long enough for me to feel it, his fear spiked, raw and electric. It rushed through me like a drug, powerful and intoxicating. I stumbled away, horrified. This thing inside me could see fear. Taste it. Feed on it. I ducked into an alley and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. My reflection stared back at me from a dirty window. One eye human. One eye cursed. The truth settled into me like a weight. I couldn't hide this forever. The eye wasn't just a sign of what I was becoming. It was a door, a crack the monster could see through, even when I was awake, even in daylight. As I pulled the scarf tighter around my face, the glowing eye burned once more. And for the first time, it wasn't angry. It was patient. The curse wasn't rushing. It knew I would break eventually. The pull started at sunset. Not sudden. Not violent. Just a tightening in my chest, like invisible hands slowly closing around my ribs. I felt it while sitting on the edge of my bed, watching the sky bleed from orange to purple through the window. The glow in my eye returned. Brighter this time. I didn't need a mirror to know, it burned with every heartbeat, syncing itself to something far away and ancient. The moment the first star appeared, my muscles tensed on their own. Run. The word wasn't spoken. It was felt. I locked the door. That should have been enough. A locked door. 4 walls. Logic. Humanity. I paced the room, clenching my fists until my nails drew blood, breathing through my teeth like someone riding out a storm. The moon wasn't even full yet. My heart hammered harder with every passing minute. Sounds from outside sharpened into clarity, the hum of distant traffic, laughter blocks away, the soft scuttle of something alive in the walls. Each one tugged at me. I collapsed to my knees as the pressure peaked. My spine arched. The pain was instant and unforgiving. Bones shifted beneath my skin, grinding and stretching. Muscles coiled tighter, denser, stronger. I gasped as my breath deepened, lungs pulling in air like I'd been starved my whole life. No, I groaned, pressing my forehead to the floor. Not again. Fur erupted along my arms, coarse and dark, spreading in violent waves. My hands twisted, fingers lengthening, nails thickening into claws that scraped against the hardwood. The door didn't stand a chance. I didn't even remember hitting it, only the explosion of wood as my body slammed through, splintering it outward. Cool night air rushed over my skin, carrying scents so vivid they made my head spin. Freedom. I was on all fours now, vision low and wide, the world stretched and alive. The moon peeked from behind clouds, its light slicing through the street like a signal flare. I ran. The ground blurred beneath me as I surged forward, faster than thought. Every step was power. Every leap effortless. Fences shattered. Bushes exploded apart. I cleared rooftops in a single bound, landing silently on the other side. Fear chased me. People screamed as shadows moved too fast for their eyes to follow. Dogs barked, then whimpered. Car alarms wailed in my wake. I should have stopped. I didn't want to. The hunger roared to life, a deep, commanding force that drowned out the last scraps of reason. Heartbeats pulsed through the night like beacons, each one calling to me. I veered toward the park, drawn by movement. A jogger froze when he saw me. Our eyes met. I saw myself reflected in his terror, towering, fur-covered, eyes glowing gold, claws dripping with dirt and blood that wasn't mine. He turned to run. I led him. For a heartbeat, the human part of me clawed its way to the surface, screaming for control. I skidded to a halt, chest heaving, muscles trembling with restraint. Then the moon broke free of the clouds. The world sharpened. I roared and bolted past him, choosing the forest instead. Trees welcomed me with open shadows. Branches snapped as I crashed through, exhilaration surging with every stride. This was what the creature had wanted all along. Space. Speed. Night. I didn't hunt, not fully. I ran until my lungs burned and my muscles sang with exhaustion. Until the pressure eased and the hunger dulled to a distant ache. When I finally collapsed near a creek, dawn was already staining the sky. The transformation peeled away slowly this time, like a tide retreating. Fur receded. Claws shortened. Bones settled back into place, leaving me naked and shaking in the mud. I stared at my hands. They were mine again. But they felt empty. As the sun rose, shame crashed over me, heavy and crushing. I'd lost control. I'd broken free. And worse. I'd liked it. Somewhere deep inside, the monster stirred, satisfied. and I knew then that the midnight run was only the beginning. I prepared for the next full moon like a man preparing his own grave. The calendar on my wall mocked me, red circles around dates I used to ignore. 3 days. Then 2. Then 1. Each sunrise felt thinner, weaker, like the night was slowly chewing holes through the day. I didn't trust myself anymore. I quit my job. I stopped answering calls. I barely spoke to my sister except in careful half-truths and forced smiles. Every lie tasted bitter, but the truth felt deadly. How do you tell someone you love that there's a monster inside you counting down the hours? On the afternoon of the full moon, I drove out of town. Deep into the industrial outskirts where warehouses rotted and basements were forgotten. I chose a place no one would hear screaming. No one would come looking. I chained myself inside. The basement was cold and damp, concrete walls sweating with age. I bolted heavy chains into the floor and wrapped them around my torso, my arms, my legs. Each lock clicked shut like a judge's gavel. I sat back against the wall, breathing hard. "This is for your own good," I whispered to myself. "For everyone." The moon rose slowly, cruel and patient. At first, nothing happened. Then the itching began. It started under my skin, like insects crawling through my veins. My muscles twitched uncontrollably. Sweat poured down my face as my heartbeat thundered louder, faster, out of rhythm. The chains rattled. "No," I said through clenched teeth. "Stay down." The glow ignited in my eye, flooding my vision with gold. Every sound sharpened, the hum of electricity above, rats moving inside the walls, the distant laughter of people who had no idea how close they were to dying. The pain came next. My spine arched violently, slamming my head back against the wall. I screamed as bones cracked and stretched, muscles swelling against the restraints. Fur burst through my skin in dark waves, soaking up blood and sweat. The chains groaned. I watched in horror as metal links began to bend, digging into my flesh. My hands twisted, fingers elongating into claws that scraped sparks off the concrete floor. "Hold," I gasped. "Please, just hold." The shadow behind me grew. I could see it even with my eyes closed, a massive silhouette clawing its way forward, pressing against my thoughts. It wasn't angry. It was amused. "You locked the door," it seemed to say. "You didn't lock me." My jaw burned as teeth pushed forward, rearranging my mouth into something meant to tear. A deep growl vibrated from my chest, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. The chains snapped. One by one, they failed, metal screaming as links tore apart under impossible strength. I barely felt the pain as steel cut into my skin. The monster surged forward, filling my body completely. I stood, taller, heavier, unstoppable. For a moment, I stared at my reflection in a rusted metal cabinet. A full werewolf stared back. Eyes blazing. Chest heaving. Drool dripping between fangs. Then the door exploded outward. I don't remember leaving the basement. I remember flashes. Concrete shattering beneath my claws. Night air rushing over fur. The sound of my own roar echoing through empty streets. I remember a car skidding to a halt. Headlights blinding me. A scream cut short. Then, nothing. When consciousness returned, I was human again. I lay curled in a drainage ditch miles away, body trembling, throat raw. My skin was torn and bruised, streaked with blood that didn't all belong to me. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. I dragged myself upright and stumbled back toward the warehouse as dawn crept in. The basement door hung in pieces. Broken chains lay scattered like discarded toys. I stared at them for a long time. I had failed. No cage could hold this thing. No promise was strong enough. The monster wasn't something I turned into anymore, it was something that could take me whenever it wanted. As the sun rose fully, burning away the last traces of moonlight, one terrifying truth settled in my chest. Next time, I might not come back at all. The night called to me before the moon even rose. I felt it in my bones while the sky was still bruised purple, daylight clinging stubbornly to the horizon. My body was sore from the last change, muscles aching, skin tender, but the pain only sharpened the pull. It reminded me that something inside me was stretching awake again. I couldn't lock myself in this time. Chains had failed. Walls had failed. Promises meant nothing. So I ran, as a man, toward the one place left where no one would hear me. The cliffs. They stood miles outside town, jagged stone overlooking a vast, empty valley. Wind howled there day and night, swallowing sound, tearing secrets apart before they could reach human ears. I'd gone there as a kid, chasing thrills and shouting into the void just to hear my voice disappear. Tonight, I needed it to disappear again. By the time I reached the edge, the moon was rising. Huge. White. Merciless. The first wave hit me like a seizure. My legs buckled, and I crashed to my knees on the cold stone, hands clawing at the ground as pain tore through my spine. The wind ripped at my clothes as my back arched violently. No, I screamed into the sky. Not here. Not now. The answer was silence. Bones cracked. Muscles surged. Fur erupted through my skin, black and bristling against the moonlight. My scream broke apart, shredding itself into a deep, animal roar that echoed briefly before the wind devoured it. I staggered to my feet, half-changed, teetering at the cliff's edge. The valley below stretched endlessly, a dark mouth waiting to swallow anything that fell. For one desperate second, an idea flashed through my mind: jump. End it. End everything. The monster laughed. Not with sound. With certainty. I dropped to all fours as the transformation completed, the world snapping into cruel clarity. Every stone, every distant movement, every whisper of air screamed through my senses. My heart pounded like a war drum. I threw my head back and howled. The sound tore out of me, raw and violent, echoing off the cliffs before the wind ripped it to shreds. No one answered. No one could. That was the point. The howl didn't empty me. It fed me. The wind carried scents from miles away, wild animals, distant towns, fear blooming faintly in the dark. My claws scraped furrows into the stone as instinct urged me forward. Hunt. Run. Claim the night. I fought it. I paced the edge of the cliff, muscles trembling with restraint, chest heaving as the human part of me clawed desperately for control. I wasn't going to kill anyone tonight. I refused. The moon climbed higher. The pressure grew unbearable. I slammed my fists into the rock, cracking stone, roaring in frustration as the hunger twisted into rage. The shadow inside me surged, pressing harder, daring me to leap into the valley or sprint toward the distant lights of the city. I screamed again. This time, it wasn't a howl. It was something broken and human, ripped apart by fangs and fury. It vanished instantly, stolen by the wind. That was when I felt it. Another presence. I froze. The air shifted behind me, not with sound, but with weight. I turned slowly, every instinct screaming danger. A second werewolf stood several yards away, perched calmly on a rock. Older. Larger. Scarred. Its eyes weren't wild like mine. They were steady. Watching. Assessing. It didn't attack. It inclined its head slightly, as if acknowledging me. Confusion cut through the hunger. The creature stepped closer, moonlight revealing old scars crisscrossing its fur, claw marks, bullet wounds, burns that had never fully healed. You scream into the wind, its gaze seemed to say. We all do it first. It raised its head and howled, not in rage, but in warning. The sound rolled across the cliffs, deep and controlled, vanishing into the night. A signal. My heart sank. I wasn't alone. In whatever I'd become. There were others like me, listening in the dark. Morning came with the taste of iron. I woke sprawled on damp earth at the base of the cliffs, my body human again, naked and shivering. My throat burned, dry and raw, like I'd been screaming for hours. When I swallowed, the metallic flavor returned, thick and unmistakable. Blood. My hands trembled as I lifted them into the gray light. Dried crimson stained my fingers and knuckles, caked beneath my nails. Not all of it was mine. I knew that before the thought even finished forming. The memory crept back slowly, like something afraid of being seen. Running. The snap of bone beneath my grip. A warm, living weight struggling, then going still. I gagged and rolled onto my side, retching until my stomach ached. Tears burned my eyes, but they didn't wash the taste away. I staggered to my feet, every muscle screaming, and followed the trail of flattened grass and broken branches away from where I'd slept. My heart hammered harder with every step, dread pulling me forward like a leash. The clearing came into view. A deer lay on its side, throat torn open, eyes glassy and empty. The ground around it was soaked dark, the scent overwhelming, rich, hot, intoxicating. My knees buckled. I hadn't killed a person. Relief hit me so hard I laughed, a broken, hysterical sound that echoed weakly through the trees. I collapsed beside the body, shaking, pressing my palms into the dirt to ground myself. But the relief didn't last. The hunger stirred again. My stomach twisted painfully, a deep, gnawing emptiness that made my vision blur. The smell of blood filled my lungs, drowning out everything else. My teeth ached. My jaw tightened on its own. I crawled backward, horrified. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." My body didn't listen. My hand reached out, fingers brushing the deer's coarse fur. The contact sent a jolt through me, heat, energy, life. My breath hitched as instinct surged, overwhelming and undeniable. I fed. Not like an animal tearing wildly, but like something that knew exactly what it needed. Each mouthful dulled the burning in my veins, strengthened my limbs, sharpened my senses. With every swallow, shame and relief tangled tighter in my chest. When it was over, I stumbled away, wiping my mouth with shaking hands. I felt better. That terrified me more than anything else. As the sun climbed higher, the world shifted again. Colors brightened. Sounds sharpened. I could hear birds returning cautiously, insects humming back to life. The forest no longer felt threatening. It felt like home. The realization hit me like a punch. This place, this blood-soaked clearing, felt right in a way my house never had. The city felt distant and artificial. Loud. Fragile. I backed away, heart racing. "You're losing yourself," I muttered. "This is how it starts." Footsteps crunched behind me. I spun, fists clenched. The older werewolf stood at the edge of the clearing, but not as a beast. As a man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Gray threaded through his dark hair. His eyes were still golden, though dimmed by restraint rather than hunger. He wore worn clothes that looked decades old. "You didn't cross the line," he said calmly. My heart slammed against my ribs. "How long were you watching?" "Long enough," he replied. "Long enough to know you're still fighting." I swallowed hard. I fed. "Yes," he said. "You survived." The word cut deep. "You let me kill," I snapped. "You chose not to kill people," he corrected. "That matters." I laughed bitterly. "For now." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "The hunger never sleeps. You can starve it, and it will rot you from the inside. Or you can feed it, and guide it." "Guide it where?" I demanded. "Away from innocence," he said simply. The truth in his voice was undeniable and horrifying. He turned toward the forest. "You felt it, didn't you? How right it felt." I didn't answer. He looked back once. "If you don't learn to control the hunger, it will decide for you." As he disappeared into the trees, the ache in my stomach returned, not pain this time, but expectation. The hunger wasn't just awake anymore. It was learning. The rain started at dusk. A cold, steady downpour that soaked the streets and smeared the city into a blur of shadows and reflections. I stood beneath a flickering streetlight, hood pulled low, heart pounding to a rhythm that wasn't entirely human anymore. I could feel them. Not see, feel. Fear moved through the city like heat through wires, sharp and bright, flaring whenever people sensed something was wrong without knowing why. The hunger inside me stirred in response, stretching, testing its leash. I clenched my fists. Not tonight, I whispered. But tonight wasn't up to me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Shouts echoed between buildings. I caught the scent first: oil, gunpowder, sweat, adrenaline. Men moving together. Purposeful. Angry. Hunters. I slipped into the alley before they saw me, melting into shadow as easily as breathing. My heart raced, not with panic, but anticipation. The monster inside me lifted its head, alert and eager. They weren't ordinary people. I saw them through gaps in the rain, armored vests beneath jackets, silver-tipped rounds loaded with care, symbols carved into their weapons. Old symbols. Wards. Knowledge passed down through generations of fear. They were looking for me. For us. A howl rose somewhere far away, answered by another, then another. The sound crawled under my skin, igniting something fierce and protective. I wasn't alone anymore. A spotlight snapped on, cutting through the rain. There, someone shouted. Gunfire cracked the night open. Pain exploded through my shoulder as a bullet tore past, grazing skin, burning cold. I staggered, growling before I could stop myself. The sound wasn't human. The chase was on. I ran. Rain blurred my vision as I vaulted fences and crashed through trash-strewn yards. Bullets sparked off brick behind me. I felt the moon tugging at my blood, urging me to give in, to let the change happen fully. I resisted, until I couldn't. Bones shifted mid-stride. Fur erupted through skin already slick with rain. My clothes tore away as my body surged larger, heavier, faster. By the time I hit the next alley, I landed on 4 powerful limbs, claws digging into wet concrete. The hunters skidded to a stop. Fear spiked. I turned to face them, chest heaving, eyes blazing gold through the rain. For the first time, I didn't feel shame. I felt resolve. They raised their weapons. I moved first. The world slowed as I leapt, crashing into their line with a roar that shook windows. Guns flew from hands. Men scattered. I knocked one aside, sending him sprawling unconscious against a wall. Another swung a blade etched with silver runes. I caught his wrist, snarling inches from his face. Run, I growled. He did. More hunters poured into the street, torches flaring despite the rain, silver glinting everywhere. I backed toward the shadows as shapes emerged behind me, werewolves, eyes glowing, forms massive and scarred. The pack. The older one stepped forward, standing beside me, rain steaming off his fur. You chose, he said calmly. The hunters hesitated now, uncertainty cracking their formation. They hadn't expected resistance. They hadn't expected unity. The pack howled together, a sound of warning, not slaughter. The hunters broke. They fled into the rain, dragging their wounded, fear blazing so bright it almost hurt to look at. Silence settled slowly. I stood there shaking, rain washing blood from my claws. The older werewolf turned to me. You defended without crossing the line, he said. That's how it begins. I looked down at my hands, claws still sharp, power still humming beneath my skin. What am I now? I asked. He met my gaze. Both. As the moon slid behind clouds and the city breathed again, I understood the truth at last. I was no longer just hunted. I was a guardian of the night. And the hunt had only just begun.